Lynn Israel will lead us in our opening song.
Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tom Edge, and I will be presenting service today along with Kevin McCluney. Robin Perry and Noelle McCluney are providing technical assistance. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We are glad that we can keep in touch and support our community, even if we can't be together in person. Please be aware that we are recording this service and it will be posted on our Facebook and YouTube pages. We greet you today as you join us in a wider search for truth and purpose. In this quest, may we encounter one another with open hearts and minds. May we inspire each other to consider new questions and seek deeper meaning. And may we cultivate wisdom and compassion. Let all who enter this place see a welcome face, hear a kind word, and find comfort in this community. May all that we do and say here today help us to be a force for positive change in the world. Please take a moment to think of all your friends at MVUUC, greet them with a comment in the chat box, and remember that you can still reach out to them via email, phone, social media, or video chat. Physical distancing does not need to mean emotional distancing. Let us support one another. Visitors, as we are a diverse group with varying interests and beliefs, our services are varied in format, tone, and topic. We encourage you to view several services to gain a good understanding of our congregation. If you'd like to receive our weekly email newsletter, please email us at news@mvuuc.org. MVUUC remains committed to supporting our members and friends during this difficult time of social distancing. For that reason, we are coordinating assistance with groceries, phone calls, and other needs. If this sounds like something that would be helpful to you, please send an email to SAC, S as in Sam, A as in Apple, C as in cat, @mvuuc.org with your name and what kind of assistance you would like to request. Now is the time for announcements. Announcements can be sent ahead of time to services@mvuuc.org to be read. If you have an important announcement now, you can raise your hand by clicking the raise hand button at the bottom of the participant box in Zoom. Then we will announce your name and turn on your mic and camera so you can make your announcement yourself. Robin, are there any announcements today?
Hi, everyone. There are currently no announcements in the services email, but Winnie has an announcement in the chat box, so I will ask her to unmute and to start her video.
Hi, everybody. Remind people that today is the first sort of official meeting for the Spirit and Practice group. So we will meet at 1 p.m. on Zoom. The link was in the newsletter or in an email I sent if you're already on the list. If you're not on the list, just check the newsletter for the link for the Zoom. That's at 1 o'clock this afternoon. See you then.
Awesome. Thank you, Winnie. There is a announcement in the chat from Megan about the Anti-Racism Book Club, which will be happening on November 5th at 7 p.m. via Zoom. And if you have any questions or want to get involved, you can email Megan at sac@mvuuc.org. And then Noelle has her hand up, so I'm going to ask her to unmute and to start her video as well. And I'm going to lower her hand.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to share, if you hadn't heard, that Jim Bisland has passed away. He passed away on Wednesday. MVUC, we did send a nice plant to Joan, but if you would like to reach out to her, I'm sure she would appreciate that. Her contact information is in the newsletter, but I just wanted to share that, our condolences, of course, to her and family, and that we're thinking of her.
All right, and that looks like to be all the announcements that we have today.
The chalice will be lit today by Tom Edge. Please join me in reading the words for the chalice lighting that appear as a comment in the chat box, or will in a second. I'll wait for those to be posted so you can read along with us. There we go. We light this chalice to remind us of our highest aspirations and to inspire us to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. And now we will have a video performance by Lynn Israel, hymn number 360, Here We Have Gathered. Feel free to sing along with the lyrics provided in the chat box.
Here we have gathered side by side, circle of kinship, come and step inside. May all who seek here find a kindly word. May all who speak here feel they have been heard. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Here we have gathered, called to celebrate days of our lifetime, matters small and great. We of all ages, women, children, men, infants and sages, sharing what we can. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Life has its battles, sorrows and regret, but in the shadows let us not forget. We who now gather know each other's pain. Kindness can heal us as we give
Thank you, Lynn. Our opening words this morning come from Michael Werner, former president of the American Humanist Association. For all the talk about reason and science, humanism is really about a passionate love affair. It is a love affair with life, not a mythical hereafter. Humanism is a love affair with a progressive vision of civilization, in which each of us can add to our growing library of wisdom, our evolving knowledge of what there is and what is truly important. None of the great achievements in history would have been possible without a love of the adventure of learning and the adventure of creating a better life. Our great cultural achievements in science, art, music, literature, philosophy, history, psychology, and political thought all inform each other and have been born of that long humanist tradition. Humanism is a devotion to humanity and the biosphere that humanity is part of. It is our passionate commitment to the best ideals that are supported by what experience, science, and civilization have taught us. Humanism is larger than any of us. We have a duty to continue humanism's evolving tradition, which has inspired countless individuals to make the world better. At the same time, it motivates us to fill our lives with transcendent purpose for a meaningful, exuberant existence that makes life worth living.
Thank you, Tom. The following reflection is a slightly edited version of one written by Leah Angiri for the Fox Valley UU Fellowship. It is entitled Creative Imagination. She writes, "When I was in college, a professor began the term by assigning a novel set in a dystopian future where everything was grim and hope was absent. I diligently read the book, which was a science fiction story by Ursula K. Le Guin. And I'm sure I wasn't the only person thinking that the term was already heading in the wrong direction, being a serious downer. But the professor surprised me. When we arrived back at class the next week, he split us into small conversation groups, asking that we reflect on our ideal society. Get as far away as possible from the world the book imagines, he urged. In the utopia of our personal dreams, what would life be like? We had some interesting conversation. One of the cool ideas I remember being tossed out was free public transportation, locally, but also globally. Can you imagine that? One fellow student in my group had recently interned with a collective that built housing using environmentally sustainable materials like cob, which is a mixture of clay, sand, straw, water, and earth that's similar to adobe. He shared a long, convoluted plan about everyone getting to create their own one-room living space that would adjoin huge communal compounds he described as being like beehives. I was 19 and remember thinking it was very sophisticated. But I have been forever haunted by the comment of a smart, thoughtful young woman. She was very quiet and listened to all the ideas presented. Then she said, "In my version of a perfect and ideal culture, anyone who abused or mistreated anyone, especially children, would be severely punished." That's the only conversational contribution she made during the assignment. I hope I will always be the first in line to advocate for accountability when wrong has been committed, especially against another person, let alone a child. But in my dreamland of total bliss and complete equality, people would not be harming other people. Couldn't we at least even fantasize about what it might mean to inhabit a place where children were not violated? Where we did not have to fear for the safety of our littlest ones? This experience of being confronted with an intelligent and worldly person who had so little capacity to dream big and think outside the box when the opportunity presented itself helped teach me that imagination is complicated. It can be hard to imagine. In Unitarian Universalism, one of the ways we have access to imagination is through humanism. The worldview of humanism can help us imagine. This might seem incongruent, but it's not. Humanism often gets a bad rap because it can be mistaken for an overly rational perspective, one that is too literal and rigid for expansive beauty and joy. Religious humanism is not confining in this stereotypical way. Rather, it is one of the least limiting forms of religious expression available to us. The reason it's long been one of the most imaginative religious forces is because it says yes to so much. It asks us to accept that our physical and spiritual lives are the result of vast and diverse influences, including science, history, human thought, and natural beauty. It even holds a place for those mysteries that have not yet become known to us. All these perspectives, philosophical, biological, environmental, are resources. They're tools we can use to fashion lives of worth and dignity for ourselves. For the religious humanists, imagination is the key that provides hope to alleviate suffering. Rather than imagination being rooted in privilege, it is the opposite. When times are hard, even oppressive, that's when it's most important. This was a new idea to me, that suffering could be addressed by imagination. The Reverend Louis McGee called this creative imagination. Although he was born into an African Methodist Episcopal family in Pennsylvania in 1893, by 1927, Louis McGee was connected with the burgeoning humanist movement and its many illustrious Unitarians. These included signers of the first Humanist Manifesto in 1933, which outlined humanist principles in a splashy 15-point platform. Here are some highlights in brief. Religion consists of those actions, purposes, and experiences which are humanly significant. The distinction between the sacred and the secular can no longer be maintained. Believing that religion must work increasingly for joy in living, religious humanists aim to foster the creative. The goal of humanism is a free and universal society in which people voluntarily and intelligently cooperate for the common good. Humanists demand a shared life in a shared world. Louis McGee loved this. He wanted more. But when he eagerly approached a Unitarian minister of his acquaintance about entering the ministry, he was told candidly that he would have to supply his own church since it was out of course out of the question for a Black man to serve a white congregation. And there were only white Unitarian congregations in existence at the time. He bided his time, not giving up on Unitarianism, but not able to move forward with it either. Finally, when he was in his mid-50s, he entered Meadville Lombard Theological School in Chicago to prepare for the Unitarian ministry. And then in 1948, he did start his very own Unitarian congregation, a predominantly Black but somewhat multiracial congregation called the Free Religious Fellowship, which was located in Chicago's South Side. Imagination is an idea that was central to McGee. This is how he summarized his theological beliefs. We believe in the creative imagination as a power in promoting the good life. For him and other Black humanists of his time, creative imagination wasn't an abstract theoretical concept too vague to be pinned down. It was clearly, tangibly, irrevocably located in human capacity. Imagination helps to resist suffering. So according to McGee and his contemporaries, here is how the world works. We, flawed yet mighty humans, contain within our minds and bodies the capacity to solve individual and social problems. Of all the issues and instances of suffering that abounded, these African-American theologians were understandably motivated to address, in particular, white supremacy and racism. They didn't see the suffering that resulted from oppression as an opportunity for redemption. Since they didn't believe in a God who called the shots, and they reasoned that only a twisted, sadistic slave master type of God would force suffering on people for their own good, they blamed white racism and other forms of unfair pain and sorrow on plain old human folly. Instead of participating in what they termed a collective God delusion, humankind should quit shirking the task of righting the wrongs that caused evil behavior. Human effort and moral struggle are the only ways to alleviate oppressive conditions and rebuild a kinder and more just collective existence. The task of social progress is ours and ours alone, since humans are not God possess the agency to make change happen. Nor is this a fool's mission. With imagination, our world can actually get better and more livable. McGee and Black humanism are clear that by dint of human effort and wisdom, our world can and will improve. We'll get there eventually if we are committed. This process itself is important. McGee wrote that the inherent in existence is a continuing search for truth, and therefore he called life an adventurous quest. Our creative imagination is a necessary travel accessory as we embark on the adventure of life work that must always include addressing suffering. Henry David Thoreau, another Unitarian from a different time, said, "The world is but a canvas to our imagination." In a way, the dystopian novel I was assigned years ago tells the truth. The world can feel grim, and hope can seem absent because the reality is that many people are suffering nearby and around the planet. It could be tempting to succumb to the idea that all we could ever hope for is to contain the damage by keeping life from degenerating even more. We might swiftly impose consequences for unacceptable behavior, but not restructure society so that our children are born into a society where they are safer. The shared life in a shared world demanded by religious humanism will not be easily realized. We're going to have to work for it, and we are. People all across the globe, including many of us here now in this congregation, are working for it, but the task is immense. It's so huge that in the meantime, in order that we not forget what it is we are struggling for, we must imagine it. Louis McGee reminds us that the creative imagination is a powerful aid in promoting the good life. Our brains and our sweat and a whole lot of else is required. But without imagination, how will we know where we are going?
Thank you, Kevin. I'm going to be delivering our UU Principal Connection this morning. When we talk about our fourth UU principle, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, we tend to confine that conversation to a few key themes. We usually interpret responsible here in terms of respecting the facts in as much as we know them, or pursuing knowledge without harming others. Or we talk about the free search as one in which we encourage the journeys of others in accordance with our third UU principle. Today's talk, however, asks us to consider the ways in which our own minds and imaginations sometimes restrict the free flow of ideas. Sometimes we are so burdened with the limits that have been forced upon us by society that we forget to ask whether something else is possible. 2 months ago, I gave a talk here focused on theater, and today's reflection reminds me of every improvisation workshop I have ever seen. When instructors teach students about improvisation, they stress the need to say yes to everything in a scene. When we say no, we cut off possibility and make it more difficult to imagine what can come next from the circumstances in which we find ourselves. Think of how often you hear a discussion shut down by the phrase, "Well, we have to do it this way because this is how it has always been done." Our reflection today reminds us that whether such sentiments are rooted in religious or secular traditions, we should be ready and willing to try something new in our search for our sixth principle, a world community of peace, liberty, and justice for all. As a denomination, we have not been immune to those old pressures and ways of thinking. We have sometimes limited our own imaginations of what is possible based on what the larger world tells us. At our best, however, we have modeled positive behaviors in what it means to look at one situation and dare to imagine something better. May we always draw inspiration from that aspect of UU history, the people who looked at our denomination's past and accepted the challenge to build a brighter world. In doing so, may we also have the strength to imagine paths and solutions that these UU pioneers could not envision.
Now more than ever, we are counting on your pledge payments and donations to help sustain and strengthen this congregation that is so important to all of us, supporting our efforts to be a community of love, truth, justice, and service. Please click on the link in the chat box or scan the QR code, and be sure to select the correct designation on the drop-down box when you donate. Thank you.
Now we will have a video performance of Lynn Israel, by Lynn Israel, of hymn 318, We Would Be One. Feel free to sing along with the lyrics provided in the chat box.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew to that high could be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service. With love and justice, strive to make us free.
Thank you, Lynn. Our closing words today come from novelist Anne Lamott. Think of a fine painter attempting to capture an inner vision, beginning with one corner of the canvas, painting what he or she thinks should be there, not quite pulling it off, covering it over with white paint, and trying again, each time finding out what this painting isn't, until he or she finally finds out what it is. And when you finally do find out what one corner of your vision is, you're off and running. Please join me in reading the words for extinguishing our chalice that can be found in the comments in the chat box. As we extinguish this chalice, may we find in each waking day scores of blessings and opportunities for positive change. After the service, we will turn on all videos and mics. Feel free to stay in Zoom and chat with your fellow MVUC members and friends for our coffee hour. Please be patient as turning on the cameras must be done one at a time, and it takes a few minutes to get to everyone. And now for our closing song, let us sing Let It Be a Dance. You can find the words as a comment in the Zoom chat box.
May I let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need. To reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow with the wind, let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong, then nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain.